Ladies and gentlemen, on YouTube there is a lot of guides for Hypixel Skyblock on pretty much every facet of the game. And sometimes I see people and wonder if they've watched any of those guides, so maybe something like this will work. Today, I'm going to be teaching you how not to play Hypixel Skyblock. My name is Derailious, and let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing on our list in terms of how not to play Hypixel Skyblock is making sure you ignore magical power. Magical power is a system built into the game from your accessory bag, and the more magical power you have, the more stats you gain from the selected power that you get. These powers give you a ton of stats that basically completely change how you're able to play and how much content you can do. If you want to not play the game properly, make sure you completely ignore this. It doesn't matter if you're doing floor 7 with 150 magical power, because that's how you not play Hypixel Skyblock properly. If you want to, completely get rid of or not even keep track of how many of these you have. Ignore the ones that are really useful for you, and spend a ton of money getting items, bows, and magical artifacts without even worrying a little bit about what's in your accessory bag. Also, you can completely ignore any of these powers, because let's be honest, if you're playing Skyblock poorly, you're not going to be using these anyway. Don't really focus on things like forceful, itchy, bloody, adept, healthy, even things like, for instance, sighted. You don't need any of those. All you need is a good weapon, and you'll be ready to go in Hypixel Skyblock. Stage 2 of not playing Skyblock correctly is pretty obvious. Make sure you avoid getting skills whenever possible. If, for instance, you have an event coming up in which there's a ton more mining XP, completely ignore mining even though you were just doing it 5 minutes ago. Consider that it no longer really matters and that you want to go for something else. And, for certain skills like carpentry, or even things like alchemy, completely ignore them. Don't focus on them at all, and when your skill average is 24 and everyone boots you from parties, say that they're the problem instead of the fact that you've put no effort into the game. Focus entirely on collecting physical wealth, like weapons and armor, and don't be shocked at all whenever you do no damage and can't survive more than 5 seconds. This is the true way to become terrible at Hypixel Skyblock. Take no accountability for any of your actions, don't put any effort into improving, and instead, buy up the most expensive items on the store and be shocked Pikachu face when you're not doing good. Step 3 of how to not play Hypixel Skyblock is making sure that you push for weapons, and only weapons. Don't go for things like magical power, don't really worry about what armor you have, and definitely don't worry about what level you are. If you're level 45 and you just beat floor 7 due to a carry, and you have a ton of money in your purse due to mom's credit card, make sure you immediately buy a Hyperion. And don't worry about any of the Wither books, just get a clean Hyperion. Make sure that you put the enchants on yourself because you definitely know what you're doing. Now that you can survive a quarter of a second in dungeons instead of an eighth, and you deal 14 damage instead of 9, you are sure to show everyone that you're just a pro player. Just don't ask why it doesn't explode when you use a right click. On top of this, make sure you go for literally every good weapon as every YouTuber says. Don't worry about doing any of the research yourself, just follow whatever other people are saying. And, on top of this, make sure that the people you're following aren't good at the game either. Make sure that you don't listen to pro players or endgame players at all, because they don't know what they're talking about, they just spend their entire life on this game. Make sure that you take no accountability for this at all, by the way, and also make sure that you just follow trends. That's the best way to become a terrible Hypixel Skyblock player. For step 4 of how not to play Hypixel Skyblock, we're in the end, because let's be honest, where else would I go for this one? Make sure to buy a carry whenever possible. Don't do anything in this game yourself, especially not Enderman Slayer, and don't learn how the boss's mechanics actually work. Instead, spend all the money that you could use on making your character actually good at the game on trying to go for one singular weapon. You know what I'm talking about, the Juju Shortbow. Make sure that once you get your hands on this weapon, you are not shocked at all when you still can't do any of the bosses that you were trying to do beforehand, and instead, continue buying carries, because I know that getting to E-Man 7 will definitely make all your problems go away, not the fact that you have 150 magical power. Don't focus on getting better at the game at all, instead, let better players do it for you, and make sure that you're always buying a carry whenever possible. Don't just do it once or twice if you absolutely need it and you want to learn more about the game. Do it even if you know everything. Pretend that you know everything. Pretend that you're a pro, because that's the best way to become terrible at Hypixel Skyblock. For stage 5, we have not taking accountability. Now that you have all these wonderful items and none of the skills to back them up, whenever you die in dungeons, blame it on things like lag, party finder, or the other teammates being terrible. Forget the fact that you're the reason that you failed the tic-tac-toe puzzle, blame it on someone else. And whenever there's an event that is actually blamed on someone else, make sure you roast them for it, as hard and as long as possible. That way, they'll know to become a better player, just like you totally are. Make sure that you don't take accountability for anything in this game whatsoever, and instead, blame people like admins, dupers, cheaters, or other good players. Because let's be honest, you're blaming everyone other than yourself. For this next tip, you're going to want to completely ignore leveling in this game. Make sure that your level is as low as possible. And what I mean by that is, ignore so many features in this game, like for instance, the museum and crafting minions. Make sure that you have as low as a minion count as possible. That way you generate the least amount of revenue, showing that you're not making any money. On top of this, completely ignore things like the accessory bag, skills, and also slayers, because let's be honest, those are for tryhards. You don't need any of these features at all. Instead, all you need is coins in your bank, stuff that you can get by buying gems on the Hypixel store. Truly the way to become the best Skyblock player. For this last tip here, I'm going to talk about something a little bit different, and I'm going to drop the bit. Basically, make sure you experiment in this game and don't just go with whatever the YouTubers tell you to go with. Those items may be good and they may be better than what you have currently, but spending all your money right now for them is not going to be a great idea. Especially if a YouTuber makes a video on something, the price is going to skyrocket, and I can promise you that that inflated price is not going to make you that much better at the game. Focus on things like magical power, focus on skills, focus on learning encounters and doing them yourself, and focus on taking accountability for how you play the game. There is no wrong way to play Hypixel Skyblock, and Hellcastle and Tyler said that in their video they made a few years back, which is similar to this one. But there are a lot of ways to play the game wrong for people who are trying to get better at it. And if you're following this guide, well, you're playing the game really wrong. At the end of the day though, my name is Derailious. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. I really do hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you look down below in my Discord. It would be really nice if you joined. Keep up to date. You get to join a bunch of giveaways. It's a great time in there. And look to the future, fellas, because I will see you then.